Hello and welcome to KQED Newsroom. I'm Thuy Vu. Coming up on our program, California and other states gained a legal victory when federal judges blocked President Trump's latest travel ban. But the fight is far from over as the Trump administration plans to appeal. Almost 2 months into Trump's presidency, we hear from a Tea Party Republican who is thrilled with Trump's performance so far. But first, as part of our ongoing coverage of the first 100 days of the Trump administration, there's been a lot of legal developments over the revised travel ban. On Monday, California joined 5 other states in the legal challenge to a new executive order targeting travelers from 6 Muslim-majority nations. In supporting that lawsuit, California's new Attorney General, Xavier Becerra, said the latest ban was an unconstitutional attack based on people's religion and national origin. KQED Senior Editor of California Politics and Government, Scott Schaefer, talks with Attorney General Becerra about this and other potential legal conflicts.
Attorney General Becerra, thank you so much for joining us on Newsroom.
Scott, good to be with you.
Let's talk about the travel ban. You've been in office now less than 2 months, and it's been a full plate for you. And the travel ban was on the docket this week. President Trump's travel ban getting struck down by 2 judges. And now on late Friday, the Trump administration said it would formally appeal the ruling in Maryland. What are your thoughts about the appeal process here, and ultimately what could happen if this goes to the Supreme Court?
It likely will go to the Supreme Court because I believe the attorneys general who have filed these cases, we all feel we have strong cases in regards to the constitutionality as that issue here. The Trump administration is targeting people based on religion, in some cases based on national origin, and it's not the way we do business in America, at least not anymore. And so we think there's a strong case to be made, and I suspect the Trump administration will drive this all the way to the Supreme Court.
As you know, the first travel ban was also struck down. That case brought by the state of Washington. Washington came back, as did Hawaii. And this week, you joined as a plaintiff with the case in Washington, but some people wondered why California wasn't leading the charge. We've been such a center for resisting Trump. What was it that kept California from being out there first?
Oh, I think it's great to have teammates. You don't win these things by yourself, and it sure is nice to see that California is joined by a lot of other states, good states, and doing good work. And so it'd be a lot of a big burden for just California to constantly be the one, whether it's on the environment, whether it's on immigration, whether it's on criminal justice reform, to always be the one. And I think it's fantastic that states have stepped to the plate. I think they've done phenomenal jobs, and we're there with them. And so it's been a team effort, and that's the way it should be, because you win as a team.
I guess my question is, did you, as the Attorney General, or perhaps the governor, in consultation with him, see some risk or some concerns that stopped you from filing a lawsuit right out of the gate?
Well, you weigh all those different considerations, and then you make your decisions based on your best judgment about the litigation and making sure you're protecting the people of your state. We were prepared to act in any number of ways. It's not just litigation. I keep telling my folks in the Department of Justice, we'll probably be in a court of public opinion more often than in a court of law. And we have to be ready to fight wherever we need to fight. And so it's great when you have teammates who step to the plate as well. I suspect there will be times when California is first at bat. But it makes no difference. At the end of the day, what you're trying to do is protect the rights of your people.
Is there a risk, do you think, in being first, being the one to file that lawsuit too often?
Well, I mean, resources are precious, and you do have to be prepared. And so, as I said, it really is important to know that across the country, there are attorneys general and there are states that are ready to step up. And that's what we need, because it's not just the folks in California that would be harmed. It's Washington State, it's Hawaii, it's Maryland, Virginia, New York, Massachusetts, in Pennsylvania, you name it. People are stepping forward, and that's what we need, because when you have that kind of a concerted effort, it's very clear this is something that harms the American people, not just the people of the state of California, for example.
The issue of immigration, of course, has been coming out in many different ways, including the Trump administration's threat towards sanctuary cities and whether or not federal funds could be withheld from those. And at the same time, California is moving even further ahead with creating what critics are calling a sanctuary state with SB 54, bill put forward by Kevin DeLeon from Los Angeles. What's your position on SB 54, do you think California should continue to limit even further communication that we can have with federal immigration officials?
Scott, in California, we're trying to let the people in our state who work hard, who help build this state, who make us a very strong economy, the 6th largest economy in the world. We want to let them know that we appreciate when people work hard. And we're going to do everything we can to let them continue to work hard on behalf of all the 40 million people who live in this state. And so whatever it takes. And I think the legislature is prepared to step to the plate. The governor made it very clear in his State of the State address, he's going to step to the plate. And I've made it very clear too, if someone wants to pick a fight with us, we'll be ready. We're not out there picking fights, but we'll be ready. And we're going to do everything we can to protect, at least this is what I've said, I will be prepared to protect everyone in the state of California who does things the right way, who works very hard. And so one way or the other, we're going to make sure that we're providing people the kind of protection, the kind of place that makes them feel welcome, that makes them feel wanted. And the legislation that's working its way, SB 54 and others, are simply an effort to try to make sure that the federal government doesn't try to intrude in California's business. We passed a legislation called the Trust Act a few years back because we saw that the federal government was trying to do too much when it came to how local law enforcement could conduct its activities. And so once again, we're going to do what we can to make sure our people know their rights and are protected.
Okay. So, as you know, you're the state's top law enforcement official, and sometimes as a Democrat, you're at odds, and as your predecessors have been, with law enforcement. Sheriffs, police chiefs, district attorneys in many cases are opposed to these kinds of moves to not only for sanctuary cities, but to make it easier for felons to get out of jail, those kinds of things. How do you approach that balancing act between your obligations as a law enforcement official and as a Democrat who has a constituency in many different ways and parts of the state?
I see no inconsistency. My job, my principal job one for me, is public safety. Most people don't recognize this, but the California Department of Justice has one of the largest law enforcement agencies in the nation. Bigger than most cities and counties. And so I have a principal duty to make sure that I am working with law enforcement, county, city, state, to make sure that our people have the public safety they expect. So I'm going to reach out to the sheriffs, the chiefs, the rank and file officers, everyone I can who works to make sure that Californians are safe. So there shouldn't be any problem there. What we want to make sure we do is create an environment where people want to cooperate with our law enforcement authorities. And we have to be careful that the federal government doesn't get in the way and make it tough to get that kind of cooperation.
What do you see as the state's top law enforcement official? What do you see as the biggest public safety threat to California right now?
Right now, immediately?
Yeah.
If you think about what the Trump administration is doing, it's creating a great deal of apprehension and fright among many people in our communities who are no longer seeking out law enforcement to help provide information about crime. That would be a travesty if communities across the state feel like they can no longer be good partners with our law enforcement authorities in rooting out and identifying crime. And so I hope that we can take care of that on an immediate basis. But generally speaking, for California, it's trying to deal with the changing environment we have where law enforcement is now having to come into the 21st century. So whether it's body cameras, whether it's dealing with racial profiling, whether it's trying to provide our officers and our people on the ground with the kind of protection they need against the sophisticated weaponry that all the criminals have, it's making sure that we're ready for the 21st century to protect the people here in the state of California.
One other place that we've had some conflict with the federal government is marijuana. And we're hearing from the Trump administration that there could be greater enforcement of federal drug laws. What does that mean to you? What are you concerned about, if anything?
Look, I just said we're in the 21st century. We can criminalize marijuana or we can regulate marijuana. From my perspective, it's a lot smarter if we regulate marijuana and make it so that if you decide to violate those rules, then you pay the price. You're punished by our laws.
But are you concerned that there might be like raids, for example, as there were in the past?
you know, the federal government may decide that this is one of the more important things they're going to deal with. I suspect many people in America would say, there are a whole bunch of folks who want to do us harm already. Why aren't we going after them first? Let's let our local states, law enforcement decide how to go after those who are maybe not doing the right thing with marijuana. But we made a decision. The people of the state of California voted to allow people in the state to use small quantities of marijuana, and so therefore, let's move on, let's regulate it, not criminalize it.
Short on time, Attorney General Becerra, but just quickly on the environment, you're getting pressure from Democratic state senators to act more forcefully against the Trump administration moving to perhaps revoke our waiver on clean air. What are your thoughts about that? Is that a fight you're ready to have?
Absolutely. Scott, there's something very important about these waivers that we got from the federal government to try to push forward our agenda on cleaning the air and cleaning the water that our citizens use and rely on. And that is that you start to make decisions, costly decisions, based on that waiver, that permission that you got. You can't just yank that permission away and think it's not going to cost a whole lot of money to try to go back to some 20th century order. And so we're going to defend the rights of the state of California to move forward. We're a forward-leaning state. We're not going to stop. If this were something that would prevent us from being able to say we're doing right by our people, then perhaps I'd listen. But we're the 6th largest economy in the world. That's because we didn't just sit around. We're doing things, and we're trying to make this place a better environment for all our people.
All right, Attorney General Xavier Becerra, thanks so much for coming in. Happy St. Patrick's Day weekend.
I got my tie on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This week, 2 federal judges in Hawaii and Maryland struck down key parts of President Trump's latest travel ban. It would have barred travelers from 6 Muslim-majority nations and temporarily stopped refugee arrivals from any country. A coalition of states, including California, mounted the latest legal challenges to the ban, contending it's unconstitutional. The federal judges agreed, citing prior statements by President Trump and some of his advisors that they deemed discriminatory toward Muslims. To discuss this further, I'm joined by Melissa Murray, Interim Dean of the UC Berkeley School of Law, and also Elica Vafaie, Asian Law Caucus staff attorney. Welcome to you both.
Thanks for having us.
So, Melissa, let's start with you. What is the practical effect of the 2 injunctions by federal judges in Hawaii and Maryland in terms of this revised travel ban?
Well, so both judges issued temporary injunctions, so it halts the enforcement of the travel ban for now. So this could be appealed either to the Ninth Circuit or the First Circuit, which are the 2 federal appellate circuits that those district courts are in, and then possibly it might go on to be appealed to the Supreme Court. But for now, the ban has not gone into effect.
People can travel freely?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Judge Derek Watson of Hawaii was considering only a request for a temporary restraining order. How long does this injunction stay in place, and where does this case go from here?
Well, so it's a more limited breadth for the temporary injunction, but the real question is sort of what happens. And so Judge Watson, who is a district court judge in Honolulu, is part of the Ninth Circuit, which is the federal circuit that includes Idaho, Hawaii, Alaska, California, Washington, and Oregon, and Nevada. It's a really large circuit. And so ideally, this would be appealed to the Ninth Circuit, which was also the circuit court that heard the appeal of the first one. Travel ban.
Yes. And what President Trump though has said, well, maybe I should go back to reissuing my first order because the second one got challenged in the courts anyway. Is that feasible?
Well, we can't rule anything out. The administration has been very unpredictable in terms of what it has done. I would not think this would be the most feasible approach since the travel ban was discredited both by the district court and then again by the Ninth Circuit, and then an en banc panel of the Ninth Circuit refused to open and rehear the appeal of the order. So it seems like there are a lot of issues with the travel ban as originally articulated. So one, the due process concerns about the Establishment Clause and whether this was discriminatory on the basis of religion. And those questions still remain as to the original travel ban, even as the travel ban 2.0 tried to resolve some of those things by eliminating some of the provisions.
And Elica, through the Asian Law Caucus, you provided legal assistance directly to people at airports when the first travel ban was put in place, before it was frozen by a federal judge in Washington. How are they doing now, and other supporters in their communities, given the current situation? Yeah. Things are still in flux.
Yeah, absolutely. We started getting calls 2 hours after the first executive order was signed with family members who were having family come in to San Francisco and not sure what was going to happen. And within hours after that, all through Saturday and Sunday and Monday, we were at SFO on the ground representing individuals. It has really been a roller coaster, a lot of anxiety about what's going to happen to our communities, and then really just back and forth roller coaster, right, with 2 executive orders that come down and the different court decisions. And so what we're seeing is people need to know how this impacts them. Just this week, some of the questions we've received from the community are, for example, I'm a U.S. citizen, my wife is abroad, and I'm trying to wait to get the visa. What's going to happen to her? Or I'm a U.S. citizen. Should I be traveling with my passport even within the United States?
And what are you telling them?
We're giving them the best advice that we can. The Know Your Rights piece is really a component, but you can imagine what it's like to make a decision. If I'm a green card holder and I need to travel abroad to see my terminally ill parent, can I do that? Can I not? What's going to happen with these court decisions?
Your organization, the Asian Law Caucus, filed an amicus brief in response to the first travel ban. What are you doing now on the legal front?
Yes, so we joined the Fred Korematsu Institute with the legacy, right, of Japanese incarceration. Joining that amicus brief was really important for us to help the national legal challenges. We're providing quite a bit of Know Your Rights, as I mentioned, with our partner organizations, and then direct services as well.
And why are you so opposed to this second order?
It's so blatantly discriminatory and overbroad. As an Iranian American myself, seeing just this equation of an entire community, of an entire religion as a security concern, it just doesn't make us any safer, and it's very contrary to what we stand for.
And in the Hawaii challenge, lawyers for that state argued that the new ban was also damaging Hawaii's robust tourism industry and hurting the ability of universities to recruit foreign top talent. And in fact, a new study out this week showed that nearly 40% of colleges nationwide are having declines in the number of applications from international students, most of it from the Middle East. What do you attribute this to? Is there a Trump effect out there?
I would say yes. Like right now at UC Berkeley, we are in the middle of our admitted students weekend. And just yesterday, I fielded a question from a prospective student from Mexico who wanted to know about what the university and indeed what the United States was going to do to make arrival and travel safe for foreign nationals. So this isn't just about Middle Eastern students, although those students are definitely concerned about the situation, but it has a very real impact on all international students, all international professors, doctors, and the impact is quite broad and quite impactful on universities and other institutions. Absolutely. The California Attorney General, along with other Attorney Generals, submitted a great amicus brief that documents that there's such a large population of these students in California, one of the largest, and that really hurts our university systems and it hurts California. The other side of the coin of this Trump effect is our local Bay Area communities, right? And this concern about, again, what's going to happen to us, right? What should we do? What shouldn't we be doing? It's just created a lot of uncertainty and anxiety here locally.
Now, I wanted to also talk to you about the immigration enforcement in this state. This week, California Supreme Court Chief Justice Tani Cantil-Sacagawea sent a letter to the Trump administration, essentially saying she is deeply concerned that federal immigration agents are, quote, in her words, stalking undocumented immigrants at courthouses and arresting them. Your thoughts?
Well, so she takes a very respectful tone. She actually says they appear to be stalking, so she's sort of trying to thread a needle. But again, her concerns in that letter are laid out, I think, quite articulately. The idea that one of the tenets of our system of democracy is the idea that individuals can seek justice in the courts, and the fact that individuals who are concerned about their immigration status would be deterred from seeking justice at the courts because they feared being detained or being captured by ICE really runs against all of the principles against which upon which our democracy was founded.
But ICE did issue a statement to KQED saying that they only do this after exhausting all other options, and courthouses actually is a safe environment in which to do this because people have to go through metal detectors. It's safer for the agents and probably also for the people they're trying to arrest. Also, do they have a point?
Well, it's certainly safer because of all of the precautions that are taken built in federal courthouses and state courthouses. But again, the courthouse is the avenue to justice that most individuals will have. And again, the idea that if you're a victim of domestic violence or a victim of crime and you would be deterred from seeking justice for the crime against you because you feared being detained really runs afoul of basic principles of democracy and access to justice. And it's not just courthouses. I mean, we've heard stories about ICE agents lingering around hospitals, trying to schools. So I mean, it's not just the courthouses.
And I don't want to leave this discussion without talking about the confirmation hearings that begin on Monday for Neil Gorsuch. He's President Trump's nominee for the Supreme Court. What should we look for? And is there any indication of how he might rule on immigration if this travel ban, for example, ends up in the Supreme Court?
Well, I think everything that's happened this week has just heightened the interest in the Gorsuch confirmation hearings, which will begin on Monday. Neil Gorsuch served as a high-ranking official in the Bush II Department of Justice. And when he was there, he was actually quite deferential to broad exercises of executive authority. And I think we can expect that he will continue to be quite deferential on issues of national security. But he has also issued statements saying that he's found the president's prior statements regarding judges to be uncivil. So while he may favor a more civil discourse, it seems clear that his past, at least, is more permissive in regards to executive exercise of authority.
Yeah.
Elica?
And we certainly will be following this very closely. I mean, given what California, the stance that California is taking from a policy perspective, how much we have at stake, what's going to happen at the Supreme Court will very much be impactful to what we need to do here in California.
Okay, much more to watch out for. Thank you both. Melissa Murray with UC Berkeley School of Law and also Elica Vafaie with the Asian Law Caucus.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
And turning now to the Tea Party, while on the campaign trail last year, Donald Trump swung through California. He lost the Golden State by more than 4 million votes. But to those who did vote for him, his stance on immigration and, quote, draining the swamp resonated. Now that Trump is president, we caught up with the chairman of the California Tea Party Caucus, Randall, to hear what he thinks of Trump's performance so far. KQED senior editor of California Politics and Government, Scott Schaefer, has more.
What role does the Tea Party have in California in 2017? What's your job?
Our job is to be the conscience of the California voter and the California conservative and to keep the Trump wave going on.
And do you feel like the party's in danger of losing its conscience?
No, it's lost it a long time ago. Back in 2010 when the Tea Party first started, that was a wake-up call. People have gotten complacent again, and now with Donald Trump, the sleeping giant has awoke again, and we need to make sure that that momentum stays on.
Now, when you say the sleeping giant has awoke, you could say that the Democrats have awoke too, right? Because there's a lot of people, in fact, they're invoking the name of the Tea Party, saying we're going to use Tea Party tactics and we're going to hold these Republican Congress members to account.
Yeah, I don't think that they're spontaneous. I think that they're more planned. Tea Party, we used to have rallies and events. The difference between ours is we were never rude, we were never brash, we were never disrespectful, and we
Democrats might disagree with that.
And we always picked up our trash.
Donald Trump lost California to Hillary Clinton by 4 million plus votes. The Republicans in the Assembly and the Senate are in the super minority in Sacramento. So is it your position that they're not doing enough of what you want them to do? Because many would say no, they need to come to the middle and appeal to more people.
No. I think that the big tent theory, which the CRP and the California Republican Party embraces, I believe that that's what lost us our standing in California. And Donald Trump is a perfect example for that. He went back to the basics, went back to personal family values, and people rallied.
But it didn't work in California.
Well, you got to remember, California, we knew we weren't going to win it. So even in our county, we made over, 1.5 million phone calls. None of them were in California.
You were calling it to other states.
Other states, yeah.
But it's still, the party is still a minority, though. Do you want to grow the party, or would you rather be sort of ideologically pure? And
No. We need to grow the party, and compromise is part of that. We all need to work together, but I think that we're going to see in 17 and 18 more people coming to the Trump side in California.
When you say you should compromise, like what should be compromised over?
Well, I don't know if the compromise is the right word. We need to embrace other people that before. Our room today, when we had our meeting, we had a lot of former Democrats in there. And historically, Republicans would not embrace Democrats. And we are now.
What about other kind of diversity? I mean, does the party need to appeal to African Americans and Latinos?
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And how would it do that?
By showing them the family values that Donald Trump stands for, and that we can get back in this state.
And what about on immigration? Do you think the message that he's giving is going to encourage Latinos, for example, or Asians for that matter, to vote Republican?
I think the right-minded Latinos and Asians, and we have them in our own Tea Party, that know that legal immigration is the answer.
I think California has something like 2 or 3 million undocumented immigrants. What would you do with those folks? What should be done?
I think they need to go back and get in line and come here legally.
What is it about Donald Trump's message that you, as the head of the Tea Party, like so much?
He basically talks about things that we all have said for years. Personal property rights, smaller government, lower taxes, abortions not paid for by the government, things that we have all talked about and said and wanted. And he said, you elect me, I will make these happen, and he's making them happen.
So far, are there things you would have liked to see him do that he hasn't done, or are there things he's done that you're not so happy about?
No. Every day is Christmas with Donald Trump.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So far.
Presents and trees and everything?
Everything, the whole ball of wax.
There are some people who say, you know, I voted for him, I want to give him a chance, but I don't agree with everything he says or everything he does. In fact, I wish he'd get off of Twitter or whatever it might be. Is that where you're at, or do you just pretty much, like you said, it's Christmas every day?
No. I think he's doing perfectly.
Perfectly?
Yeah, I'm very happy with what he's doing. And the Twitter thing, how else does he get his message out? That's basically, if he releases it in a press release, it's going to get turned.
Randall Jordan, thanks very much.
Oh, thank you.
And that is it for tonight. For more of our coverage online, go to kqed.org/newsroom. I'm Thuy Vu. Thanks so much for watching.